5 bone-chilling tales of terrifying nights, unexplained horrors revealed from walking home alone. Jake Thompson had always loved music. But tonight, as he walked home beneath the unsettling flicker of streetlights, the quiet suburban streets felt sinister. Shadows stretched and twisted, drawing eerie shapes that quivered against the chipped pavement. Anxiety gnawed at him, heart racing, while he gripped his guitar tightly, the last tether to his dreams of escape. His friends were celebrating at a charity gala, and Jake felt the loneliness seep into his bones like a cold winter's breeze. Then it hit him, a haunting melody cut through the nighttime stillness, its melancholic notes dancing upon the air. The song was familiar, a tune woven into the fabric of his family's struggles, echoing lost whispers of better days. It disoriented him, twisting his insides. What should have been a familiar route now felt extraterrestrial, and every rustle of leaves seemed like a whisper of doubt, mocking his ambition. Could he really make it as a musician? Those thoughts deepened the shadows, and Jake quickened his pace that he took a detour past an abandoned lot where a dilapidated swing set creaked like a ghostly sentinel. Urban legends flooded his mind, stories of lives cut short, tragedies that colored his neighborhood with sorrow. The swing set swayed back and forth, almost hypnotic, as if some invisible child felt the need to play. The air buzzed with tension, a pulsing energy that made Jake's skin crawl and sent countless anxious thoughts racing. He could almost hear whispers swirling around him, fragments of old friends lost to tragedy circling like vultures. The rhythm of his footsteps turned frantic, matching the quickening tempo of his heart. Panic set in when he glanced at his phone only to see a cracked screen and zero battery life, what had felt like his lifeline now rendered useless. Ahead, the warm glow of houses flickered like beacons, but behind him, shapes began to materialize. Shadows flickered against the moonlight, dark figures teasing the edges of his consciousness, clinging to his doubts about his worth. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When he turned around again, the haunting resonance of laughter mingled with the distant echoes of the charity event. It wrapped around him like a heavy fog, shifting his thoughts. The laughter felt so full of life, and yet the shadows remained close, demanding acknowledgement of the unresolved pain behind each smile. The stirring in his gut begged a question: could he truly leave his past behind, or might he have to face the collective hurt of his community head-on? Jake stood frozen, torn between the laughter of solidarity and the ghostly whispers that loomed on the edges of his consciousness. The night held him prisoner, forcing him to confront a dreadful truth. Could he find the courage to bridge his dreams with the collective wounds swirling around him, or would the shadows pull him back into their darkness? Jake barely moved, paralyzed by the weight of the night pressing against him. The laughter echoed louder, a cruel reminder of what he longed for: connection, joy, a sense of belonging. But all he felt was isolation, stifling and cold like the moonless sky above. The shadows seemed to pulse with malicious intent, and he could swear he saw them shift closer, their silhouettes elongating and distorting in the glow of the nearest street lamp. He turned abruptly, fighting the instinct to flee. He needed to understand what was happening. Clutching his guitar tighter, he advanced toward the source of the laughter. Each step felt like treading deeper into quicksand. But the curiosity nagged at him, pulling him toward that flicker of warmth in the air. As he approached, the laughter revealed itself, spiraling out from an old fire pit surrounded by an assembly of figures cloaked in black. They didn't seem to notice him, their focus absorbed in each other, swapping stories and guffawing like the nights of uninhibited youth he once knew. But beneath their laughter lay an undercurrent of something else, a tension that prickled the back of Jake's neck, alarming in its familiarity. His throat tightened as he caught fragments of their conversation. Saw the ghost again near the swing set, one voice quipped, giggles erupting from the circle. Another voice warned, stay away from the old lot at night. It's not safe. Out of context, the word sent a shiver up Jake's spine, igniting the anxiety that latched onto his spirit. Dare he approach them? A shadow flickered behind him, and he felt an undeniable push to turn back. But something drew him forward, the sweet scent of the smoke mingling with nostalgia. Suddenly, one of the figures, a girl with wild hair and piercing eyes, met his gaze, her laughter fading to silence as a tentative smirk crept onto her lips. "Hey there, stranger," she called out, beckoning him closer. "Join us. You're not scared of a little campfire ghost story, are you?" There was an edge in her voice, playful yet alluring, an invitation into their realm. Jake hesitated, heart racing. Simon. It's just the dark playing tricks on you." Another boy shouted, his bravado thick with laughter. Yet a part of Jake knew that the shadows held secrets not easily shared. They were stories, old ones that lingered like smoke, twisting through the air like the lingering notes of a forgotten song. Compelled by an impulse that bordered on reckless curiosity, he drew nearer. The fire crackled, casting a flickering glow that illuminated the faces around him, a tapestry of expressions, half in laughter, half in dread. The girl smiled, eyes sparkling, as though she recognized the turmoil within him, the haunting melody echoing in his mind. "Let us tell our stories," she suggested, tapping into a tradition Jake didn't know he craved. Each tale would unravel more about the specters of their past, and part of him wanted to unearth these hidden horrors. But what if the night revealed something he wasn't prepared to face? Before he could voice his thoughts, the guitar slipped from his grasp, clattering to the ground. "I can't let it go, I must hold on." As Jake bent to pick it up, an electric snap rippled through the air. The others fell silent, tension tightening around them like a noose. A chill crept up his spine, a shadow flitted just beyond his sight, deeper and darker than those that haunted him before. The laughter died, replaced by something far more sinister. What was that? Someone whispered, suddenly fearful. The energy shifted, pulse quickening like the impending storm. Jake's heart thundered in his chest as an unseen presence loomed, a creeping dread clawing up his throat. The forgotten stories sat heavy on his shoulders, desperate to be told. But first, he must confront the darkness muttering just out of reach, and as their eyes searched the shadows, something shifted again, a new note in the haunting melody, a call echoing in the silence that remained, waiting for his answer. What lay ahead wouldn't just demand his courage, it would compel him to unravel the mysteries lying in the dark. What awaited in the depths? The flames flickered angrily, casting treacherous shadows that danced like restless spirits among the trees. Jake felt every heartbeat echo in his ears, a demanding drum urging him to flee. But the eyes of the cloaked figures bore into his soul, filled with haunted stories and life that felt far too real. "Jake, right?" the girl with wild hair asked, a slight grin on her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Tell us your story or we can tell you ours. What'll it be?" Her words were an invitation and a challenge rolled into one. The group leaned in, their expression a mix of confidence and mounting expectation. He felt like an insect caught in a web, and yet somehow drew closer, willing to take the risk. I don't have a story," Jake stammered, his voice shaking. The weight of his loneliness clawed at him like a vulture ready to feast, but deep down, he knew, everyone carries a story, and he was no exception. "Sure you do." Another voice chimed in, a boy with a scar slicing across one brow. "Everyone does. Just look at these woods. They hide more than you can imagine." He gestured around them as if the trees themselves would come alive to leverage the truth. The girl spoke again, her voice smooth and inviting, but the glimmer of seriousness lingered in her tone. "The ghosts here don't just haunt, their stories beg to be told. And tonight, we'll draw them out." A sudden gust swept through the campsite, rattling branches and chilling the air. The laughter that had previously enveloped them now felt distant, as though the very spirits in the woods were listening. Maybe they were. Jake's resolve wavered like the flames before him. The guitar hung heavy around his neck, an anchor reminding him of the world he wished to escape. He inhaled sharply, gathering the fragments of his shattered connection to the past. "Okay, I'll share," he said, the words emerging as a challenge to himself more than to them. "Perfect!" the girl exclaimed, clapping her hands eagerly. "We're all ears." His throat tightened, but he pressed on, a desperate need building inside him to unravel the truth tethered deep within. "When I was a kid, my parents would take me to this old park. The swings would creak when nobody was there, and stories of a girl who went missing there they haunted me. They said she would play at night, and if you listened closely, you could hear her laughter on the wind." A silence enveloped them, thick and palpable. The flicker of the fire seemed to dance nervously, echoing his rising anxiety. "One night, I saw her. Just a glimpse, a pale figure swinging in the dark, her laughter breaking the silence, calling me." A shiver danced along his spine as Jake remembered the cold sweat that sprinted down his back that night, how he sprinted home, heart racing. "What did you do then?" The boy with the scar pressed, leaning forward, eyes locked on Jake's. "I ran. I didn't." He looked back. But Jake hesitated, feeling the weight of every unsaid word straining against his mind. "But I always wondered what would have happened if I had." Before anyone could respond, the air shifted again, turning frigid. That electric chill surged through their gathering like a shockwave. The laughter had vanished, replaced by an unsettling quiet. "What if she is here now?" the girl whispered, a tightness in her voice. Suddenly, they all stiffened, glancing around nervously as if expecting the ghostly girl to emerge from the shadows. The darkness echoed again, a low murmur winding through the trees. Jake's chest tightened, heart pounding wildly in rhythm with the whispers around him. He inhaled deeply. "Maybe it's time to face the past," he muttered, staring into the waiting shadows, the very darkness that concealed his memories. Just as he felt that weight lift, a scream echoed through the woods, a piercing, wailing cry that sliced through the night, freezing the laughter in their throats. Jake's heart thudded violently, splintering open the floodgates of fear. What was that? Someone gasped, but Jake stood frozen, staring into the blackened abyss, feeling that relentless tug of dread pulling him deeper into the unknown. What if the darkness had a story begging to be heard? What was lurking just beyond sight, eager to share its haunting tale? As the echoes of the scream faded, a new chill washed over him, thickening the air with a tension that promised to unveil long-hidden horrors. What awaited them in the shadows, and how was it all connected to the sinister laughter from the past? The night was just beginning. The scream lingered in the air, heavy and oppressive, wrapping around the group like a cloying fog. Jake felt the weight pressing down on him, every second stretching into eternity. The fire, once a warm refuge, now barely cut through the darkness that pulsed with a life of its own. What if it was her? Whispered the girl with wild hair, her eyes wide, reflecting the flickering flames like twin beacons of fear. Who? Jake's voice trembled, but he couldn't pull his gaze from the shadowy edges of the woods that seemed to grow closer with each heartbeat. "The girl, the one you saw at the park," she answered, a breathless urgency coloring her words. "What if she's come here for you?" Just as the statement settled like a foreboding cloud, a whisper snaked through the trees, jagged and indecipherable yet tinged with familiarity. The group fell silent, their mouths forming small O's of disbelief. I think we should go," Jake stammered, inching back as if the very ground were alive beneath him. "No." The boy with the scar shot back, his zeal overpowering fear. "What's happening out there? We can't just run. We can't. Not until we understand." Jake wanted to protest, to flee into the safety of the car parked miles away, but something kept him grounded, a current surging through him that urged him onward. The need to confront the inexplicable clawed at his gut. What if the answers lay shrouded in the same dark woods that had haunted him for so long? "What do you mean understand?" The word slipped out, not from his head, but from a deeper, desperate place longing for connection. "The woods have stories," the girl exclaimed. "They've seen things. We can unlock them. But we need to listen." Jake felt their seeping energy seep into him. He flicked a glance at the towering trees, dense, gnarled, full of secrets. Could they reveal what he had buried all these years? We should make contact, the girl continued, her voice slicing through the night air. If the girl is here, maybe she has something to tell you about that night. Are you insane? The scar-faced boy retorted, his bravado beginning to show cracks. You want to call her over? What if she is not friendly? Silence bloomed between them, thick with uncertainty. Jake's breath came shallow, a fleeting wave of anger at his own fear. Maybe that was the very thing he had been running from even in the shadows of his memories. I have to try, he murmured, his heart pounding against the walls of his ribcage like a caged animal. If there's a chance to understand what happened. Let us do it, then, the girl said, resolve in her eyes. But let us do it together. With trembling fingers, she reached toward the flickering flames and took a handful of twigs, weaving them together with spider silk to craft a small effigy. She placed it on the ground, the glow of the fire illuminating her determined expression. We'll draw her out with our stories. The others held their breath, awaiting Jake's next move. The power of the moment gripped him, nearly suffocating. Okay, then Jake took a deep breath, weaving his own tale into the fabric of the night. I want to know why she called to me. As he began to speak, a weight shifted in the air, warm and heavy. The woods seemed to lean forward, listening intently. Suddenly, a rustle broke through the tension, sharp and jarring. The group's gazes snapped to the shadows, eyes wide. Then, from somewhere deep within the forest, came the unmistakable sound of laughter, high, musical, and mingling eerily with the branches swaying as if they, too, were alive. The laughter held a recognition that sent chills racing down Jake's spine. Wait, is that he froze, the joy of recollection twisting into fear. Is she laughing at us? And as the laughter echoed once more, they all felt it, a looming presence, an undeniable connection to the past that waited, hungry and expectant, deep in the shadows. What would the forest reveal if they dared to listen? Would they be swept into their stories, or would they awaken something far darker in their quest for answers? The night was far from over. Jake's heart thudded as the laughter faded into the darkness. It wasn't just sound, it was a beckoning thread pulling him deeper into the woods. He swore he could feel the trees responding, their branches curling like fingers, urging him to step away from the fire and into mystery. Did you hear that? The girl's voice cracked, her wide eyes darting toward the shadows, as if expecting a ghostly figure to emerge at any moment. Maybe she wants us to follow, the boy with the scar suggested, his bravado faltering with each passing moment. It was an absurd idea, yet Jake found himself almost willing to embrace it, intrigued by the whispered promises hidden in the darkness. Or wants to trap us, Jake shot back, his voice barely a whisper, driven by the primal instinct to survive. This isn't a game. We can't just. Then what do we do? The girl pressed, her breath hitching, fear mingling with determination. We came here to understand. The laughter, it feels like an invitation. They stood in a tight circle, tension crackling in the air. Shadows danced along their faces, warping expressions into expressions of determination and dread. Okay, but if we go into those woods, we must stick together, Jake said, feeling a surge of resolve. And if we sense danger, we turn back. No questions. The others nodded, albeit reluctantly, unsure if they were seeking answers or courting catastrophe. As they moved, the whispers grew louder, sliding under their skin like icy fingers. Jake felt a prickling sensation dance up his spine, a reminder that the forest was alive with unknown presence. Don't leave me, a soft voice floated through the trees, almost like a sigh. It wrapped around Jake, tightening with every heartbeat. What was that? The girl breathed, her feet freezing at the edge of the darkened path. Just the wind. Jake tried to reassure them, but he felt the uncertainty creep back in. The whispers felt too personal, too familiar. No. No. It's her. The scar-faced boy yelled. Panic cut through him as he pointed into the dark maw of the woods. Get back. Before they could react, a shape emerged, slinking gracefully into view. Moonlight glinted off long, dark hair falling to her shoulders, her eyes gleaming like two soulless voids. She looked eerily like the girl from the park, except darker, her features sharpened by shadows, an ethereal beauty twisted into something unsettling. "Why did you call me?" she asked, her voice a melody infused with danger, echoing through the trees. Jake felt his breath catch, an electric thrill charging through him. This was at the moment he had been both dreading and yearning for. The group instinctively huddled closer, the fire's warmth now feeling like a distant memory. "What do you want?" he managed to ask, the dread pooling heavy in his stomach. "You sought the truth, Jake. But some truths are better left buried." Her eyes narrowed, and the laughter erupted around them, an explosion of sound that sent echoes racing through the forest, a haunting reminder of all he had lost. Before the group could process her words, the air thickened with tension. Shadows clawed their way closer, enveloping the area, pressing in like a wall. Jake's skin prickled, the night seemed to breathe, the trees seemed to shudder, as if they were waiting for something to happen. "Run!" the girl yelled, but the command felt futile against the mounting horror. Jake hesitated, the urgency of the moment clashing with his curiosity. What if the truth held more weight than the fear? What if the revelations buried in this forest could finally free him from the shackles of his past? But deep down, he sensed the danger looming like a storm cloud over his head. Then, as if triggered by his thoughts, the laughter rose again, now twisted and malicious. It bounced through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. "Do you see now?" the girl in the shadows taunted, stepping closer with a predatory grace. "The past never truly leaves," they turned, the dark woods closed in, and the crisp night air chilled to its core. And just like that, with a surge of adrenaline, Jake knew, they had awakened something sinister. Something that wanted more than just stories. What truths awaited them in the darkness, and would they survive long enough to uncover them? As shadows melded into a single entity, Jake scanned the flickering firelight, knowing time was running out. The shadows twisted, merging into a thick curtain that seemed to swallow them whole. Jake's heart raced, pounding in his ears as he grasped the girl's hand, pulling her back toward the flickering light of their campfire, though it felt futile. Her eyes were wide, glittering with fear and disbelief. "Where do we go?" she gasped, the rasp in her voice cutting through the din of laughter that hummed around them. The scar-faced boy stumbled beside them, looking left and right as if expecting the trees to part and reveal a path. "Stick together!" Jake shouted. Breathing heavily, he tried to hold his ground. The laughter echoed hauntingly, weaving through the trees like tendrils searching for prey. Suddenly, the girl from the shadows approached them, gliding effortlessly, eyes cold as steel. "You can't hide from her," she whispered, her lips curling into a smile that did not reach her eyes. The chill in her voice sent chills racing down Jake's spine. He didn't understand. Was she friend or foe? "Do you want the truth?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, an eerie curiosity glimmering in her gaze. "Then you must pay the price." "Pay the price?" Jake echoed, a knot tightening in his stomach. He felt trapped, caught between the warmth of the fire and the creeping dread of that laughing darkness. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, a deafening crack split the night. A branch toppled, snapping like a twig underfoot. All four flinched, adrenaline coursing through them. The moment was shrouded in panic, all thoughts of curiosity swept away with the rising tide of fear. "Run!" Jake shouted again, unable to think logically. The words tumbled from his lips as he yanked the others into action, sprinting into the dark maze of trees. They dashed deeper, shadows clawing at their backs, the laughter intertwining with their frantic breaths. "Jake, wait! Where are we going?" the girl cried, struggling to keep pace, but he didn't stop. Every instinct screamed at him to keep moving. The woods felt alive, the branches whispering secrets too terrible to comprehend. Was it his imagination, or could he hear the echoes of laughter shifting around them, mocking their desperation? Suddenly, a stark silence befell the area as they burst into a small clearing. Moonlight draped them like a blanket, but it brought no comfort. What now? The boy with the scar asked, chest heaving, hands shaking. Look. The girl pointed, her gaze fixed ahead. Jake turned, and through the shadows, he saw the outline of a large, ancient tree, its gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers. He felt compelled to step closer, even though every part of him screamed to pull away. It's looking for something, the girl murmured, her voice trembling. What if it wants us? The scar-faced boy whispered, terror shining in his eyes. Just stay here. Jake said, edging towards the tree. But before he could take another step, a deep, low growl resonated through the clearing, vibrating in the air like thunder, freezing them in place. The shadows shifted again, coiling tighter. You called for the truth. It's time to face it, the girl from the shadows said, her voice barely a whisper now, echoing from the edges of the darkness surrounding. Jake's heart raced. The air thickened with dread, and in that moment, he understood something deep and dark had been awakened, demanding to be confronted. Run! He shouted again, but this time it felt different, as if that command was not enough to escape what waited in the depths. The ghostly laughter returned, but now it held a sinister edge, an ancient hunger that could not be ignored. As they turned to flee, the ground beneath them rumbled as roots twisted and wriggled, attempting to ensnare their legs. What is happening? The girl screamed, her voice a jarring note of hysteria. Jake didn't answer, there were no words for the horror they faced. All he could think to do was survive, but ahead in the lines of trees, something shifted, a silhouette vaster than the rest, like a predator circling its prey. Time ticked away. Something was about to happen. Something beyond their understanding. What awaited them in the clearing, and would they discover the truth or perish in their search for it? The ground quaked as the roots slithered closer, stretching like serpents hungry for flesh. Jake's heart thumped violently against his ribcage, clawing at his throat as fear pulsed through his veins. The laughter transformed into a chorus of nightmarish echoes circling them, taunting every breath taken. Don't let go. He yelled, squeezing the girl's hand tighter, but she already felt like a wisp slipping through his fingers. The scar-faced boy, wide-eyed and shaking, swung around, his face paling. What is happening? There's no time. Jake snapped, his voice sharp and filled with desperation. He couldn't think straight. The weight of the darkness pressed down, almost suffocating. The ancient tree loomed behind them, its gnarled, blackened branches stretching, a threshold that blurred the line between safety and peril. Go! He shouted, pulling them toward the edge of the clearing. The roots twitched and recoiled, like living things insulted by their movement. Suddenly, a piercing shriek fractured the air, splitting the night. It felt like a blade driven through silence. Move! He shouted again, instinct overthinking the situation. Their bodies surged forward, tripping over roots and branches, each step fueled by a primal urge to escape. Where? The girl gasped, panic making her voice high and wild. Anywhere but here. Jake replied, darting to the right. They stumbled deeper into the woods, tearing through the thick underbrush, branches clawing at their skin. Glancing back, Jake saw the silhouette, shadowy and vast, shifting like smoke, hunger persistent. Something was pursuing them, and it wasn't the laughter, it was something much darker. Suddenly, they burst into another clearing, this one smaller and eerily still. Moonlight painted the ground in patches, flickering like burning embers, illuminating absurdly beautiful flowers black, twisted things glistening with dew. But there was no time to marvel. With his chest heaving, Jake turned to the girl. Do you see anything, any way out? She shook her head, her breath hitching. I can feel it watching us. Just stick together. Jake urged, fighting against the rising tide of dread that threatened to pull him under. But as he tightened his grip on her, another growl shook the earth, deeper, from the very heart of the woods this time. Then came a guttural roar, a sound that felt more animal than human. The trees shivered, leaves quaking as something massive stalked toward them from the depths of darkness. "Run!" The scar-faced boy screamed, but the word hung in the air like a taunt, and as if sensing their cowardice, the foreboding creature surged forth. All sense left Jake's mind as they turned yet again, darting towards a faint light flickering in the distance. Hope flared in his chest, a fleeting warmth in the encroaching cold. "This way!" he shouted, urging them forward. As they sprinted, roots whipped at their ankles, branches clawed at their clothes, but the weight of the darkness pressing behind them urged them onward. Just as they neared the light, Jake caught a glimpse of the thing that stalked them, a mass of shadows, its eyes glowing with an insatiable hunger. It was too late. The light began to fade as they stumbled closer, like a mirage pulled away by malevolent hands. Now, they were trapped between despair and possibility. Would the light offer safety or a fate worse than the creature stalking them? The shadows whispered promises of truth and terror, but what would be the cost? And in that moment, Jake realized he could either face the truth whatever it may be or surrender to the darkness that hungered for their souls. "Keep running!" he shouted, pushing them all towards the flickering glow, even as the laughter swelled, echoing their fear. But as they lunged forward, just as the light seemed to reach them, the ground cracked open before them. Jake's heart sank. A chasm opened, revealing a dark abyss below. Was this the escape they sought, or the final descent into madness? In that heartbeat of hesitation, the laughter aligned with their terror, forming a chilling symphony that promised nothing but despair. Would they leap into the void or face the darkness chasing them? The choice loomed as an echo of despair, and determination clashed like thunder in his mind. Jake's heart raced, pounding in his ears as the chasm yawned wide like the maw of an insatiable beast. He was losing his grip on reality, the world distorted between the treacherous darkness behind and the abyss ahead. He could feel the girl's trembling hand in his, her touch a fragile tether against the swirling chaos. "Jump!" the scar-faced boy shouted, terror lacing his voice. But Jake hesitated, wrestling with the weight of their fate. The laughter grew louder, wailing like 1,000 souls, and the creature behind them pressed closer, a consuming darkness that throbbed with malevolent energy. "Are you crazy?" the girl gasped, her eyes wide, glistening with fear. "Mistakes kill." Jake shot back, rage battling alongside panic. "We can't just fall into that." But time was slipping. They had seconds to act. The swirling shadow thrummed with anticipation, its electric energy filling the air like a storm. He was torn between the void and that damned creature's hunger, and guilt twisted in his chest. He could lead them to doom, or somehow they could leap and find salvation. "Trust me," he cried, just as the roots leapt towards them, sinister in their intent. Without waiting for a reply, he thrust himself forward, dragging the other two closer to the edge. Jake's legs burned, but he pushed through, focusing only on the flickering warmth of light, still faintly visible against the backdrop of shadow. Then, there was a low growl that shook the ground beneath him, a guttural promise of torment. The silhouette drew closer, its glowing eyes fixated on their every move. Each step forward felt like a risk closer to death, and Jake could sense the chill of its breath. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. The forest erupted into chaos, shadows clashing with their desperate hope. "Now!" Jake yelled, springing toward the edge of the abyss, adrenaline coursing through him. He felt weightless as he launched himself into the open air, the world blurring into a dark smear beneath him. He watched the girl and the boy leap with him, their expressions a mix of terror and determination. But as they fell, the world spun, then a shock of cold water enveloped him. Gasping, he thrashed, fighting against the currents. The abyss was not a void but a river of darkness, dragging him under. With every stroke, he clawed toward the surface, reaching for any glimpse of the light above. Then he broke through, gasping for breath as he fought to find their faces. "Where are you?" The water churned with shadows, and echoes of laughter morphed into screams. They were still here. The girl surfaced next to him, panic etched into her features. "I can't see the boy." Heart pounding, Jake turned, scanning the swirling black. He has to be close. Swim. The current pulled fiercely, clawing at them, but he couldn't focus on it. A swell of dread welled inside him. They couldn't lose him, not now. Then he heard a scream from below. A cry for help, distorted and swallowed by the rushing water. Jake's blood ran cold. Help him. The girl yelled, her hands gripping his arm. I'm going. Jake roared, plunging beneath the surface. The darkness engulfed him, a weightless void wrapped in whispers. He swam deeper, pushing past the panic as shadows danced around him. The screams echoed louder, a haunting symphony of fear threaded in the dark. And then, just as he thought he'd burst through, a cold grip latched around his ankle. Jake gasped, dread spiraling through him. What was down here? What other horrors awaited him? In the grasp of icy fingers, he twisted, adrenaline surging again as he fought to break free. But the grip tightened, pulling him deeper into unfathomable terror. Was this the end, or was there still a chance to save them all? A flash of light flickered above, and he swore he could feel the presence of something ancient lurking beneath. What awaited him in the depths of that darkness? Jake's lungs screamed for air as he thrashed against the unseen grip. It tightened, icy fingers sinking deeper into his flesh, dragging him further into the blackened water. He fought against the fear that clawed at him. The world above felt impossibly far away. Desperate, he kicked, straining against whatever malevolent force had latched onto him. The sensation was suffocating. Every attempt to break free was met with a renewed ferocity from the dark. Suddenly, a bright flash illuminated the water around him, banishing some of the shadows, if only for a heartbeat. In that fleeting moment, he saw it, a monstrous shape coiling beneath him, scales glimmering like obsidian under the water's surface. Panic surged anew. Was that the creature from before, now lurking in this abyss? The grip around his ankle slackened slightly, and Jake seized the chance. He kicked harder, pushing against the dreadful force that sought to claim him. He swam upward, each stroke taking every ounce of will he had left. Then he heard her voice. Jake! Come back! It was the girl's voice, desperate, echoing through the water like a lifeline pulling him upward. The surface. He swam harder, darting through the shadows that threatened to drag him back down. And then, just as he felt his strength failing him, he broke through the surface, gasping for air. The cold wind hit him like a slap, and the chaotic sounds of splashes and shouts surrounded him. He looked frantically around for the girl, and there she was, her face pale, eyes wide with fear, but determined. Where's the boy? Jake looked down, trying to focus through the fading light. I don't know. He turned back, frantically scanning the water, but there was nothing. Panic rose again, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. Then he heard it again, the chilling echoes of that scream swirling beneath the surface. Something stirred within him, a primal instinct to save his friend. Without thinking, he plunged back into the inky water, heart pounding. The cold stung, but he pressed down, opening his eyes, hoping to see through the murky depths. Shadows danced around him, and now the screams transformed into taunts, mocking him from all sides. What do you want? He shouted, voice trembling as the weight of despair settled over him. A shape darted past, a swift motion that sent shivers racing down his spine. He couldn't tell if it was the boy or the creature. The water churned, and Jake felt panic claw in his throat. He was running out of time. That he braced himself, willing the terror down and pushing forward. He had to find him. The darkness closed in, disorienting him as he felt something pull at his legs again, sharper this time, like teeth ready to bite. He kicked, fighting for freedom from the dread-filled grasp once more. Bursting through the surface again, he gasped wildly. Can you see him? He shouted at the girl. No. Her voice cracked, tears mingling with the fear. He's gone. Not gone. Jake roared, determination flooding him. But how could they lose him? He felt the coldness wrap around him again, not just the water's chill, but the bitter grasp of hopelessness. And then it hit him, the flash of light before. Maybe if he got to that light again, maybe. Come on, Jake shouted, grabbing the girl's hand, leading her downstream even as the current thrashed against them. They had to find that point of brightness, but with each stroke forward, shadows swirled closer, the mocking laughter growing louder. It felt as if something was watching from the deep, waiting for them to falter. "Don't look back," he urged, heart racing. They had to reach the light, and then, just ahead, glimmering like a beacon, he saw it, a shimmer breaking through the murky surface. "There!" He pointed, adrenaline surging. But even as hope sparked in his chest, a deeper terror crept forward. What if they weren't alone? What if that light was the very thing they should be afraid of? Jake's grip tightened on the girl's hand as they surged toward the glow, unaware of the true horror that awaited them just beyond. What lay in wait near that light? Salvation or doom? Jake propelled himself forward, the glimmer of light beckoning like a siren across treacherous seas. The icy grip of darkness faded slightly, but Jake knew its malignance was still close behind. Every stroke pushed him closer to that point of brightness, where safety might reside, or, perhaps, an entirely different kind of terror. Almost there. The girl gasped beside him, her determination spurring him onward. But as they neared the shimmering surface, panic clawed at Jake's throat. A quick glance over his shoulder revealed shadows rising like waves, hungry, dark forms slipping through the water, eager to reclaim what they thought belonged to them. "Don't look back," he shouted, pushing the thought of failure down into the depths of his very soul. With one final push, they burst through the surface and into a brilliant expanse of light. It was dazzling, magical, like stepping from despair into a world renewed. But as they gasped for air, the warmth of the glow felt deceptive, alluring yet seemingly flawed. The moment of clarity shattered as Jake spun around, dread flooding his senses. "The boy!" he cried out, heart racing. "Where is he?" Questions swarmed in the air, heavy as lead. "I don't know." The girl's voice quivered. "I thought he was right behind us." Before they could fully comprehend, a ripple broke across the surface, and an ominous shadow crested. There, just beneath the glimmering water, Jake caught a glimpse, something shifting, something even darker than the woodlands they had just fled. "No," he whispered, chest tightening as he felt the weight of impending loss loom over them. "We have to go back." "Are you insane?" the girl cried, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't go back to that. It's going to devour us all." But Jake's determination hardened, like iron forged in an unrelenting fire. "We can't just leave him. I won't abandon him," he said, voice resolute. In that moment, the bond of their shared terror pressed through the silence between them, forging an understanding. This wasn't just about him or his past, it was about them all facing the shadows together. "Okay, then let us do this," the girl whispered, her tone shifting, a flame igniting within. They exchanged steely glances, a shared commitment uniting them. There was no turning back. They plunged back into the water, arms and legs moving as one, riffing off the same chord of hope. Though fear could have easily taken root, resolve propelled them deeper, into the uncertain glow where shadows nodded into tangible fears. As they swam, whispers began to swell around them, echoing voices that begged for release, stories long buried surfacing like ghosts snapping back into reality. Shadows distorted around them, deforming into figures that reached out, their mouths opening in silent screams, cries for help. Suddenly, a different shape broke forth from the swirling shadows, a figure struggling against the current. Jake! It was the boy, flailing against the grasp of darkness that sought to pull him under, his eyes wide with panic. "Grab my hand!" Jake shouted, stretching out, heart racing with desperation, but as the boy turned, the shadows clamored around him, an agonizing cacophony of screams gripping his throat. The water churned violently, swirling with anguish, and in that horrible moment, Jake's heart sank. "Hold on!" The girl swam harder, pulling Jake along with her, the fire of shared determination blazing brighter than their fears. "We'll save you!" In a surge of courage, they lunged toward him, fingers almost touching. But shadows clung like desperate vines around the boy's limbs, dragging him deeper into the abyss. "I can't," he gasped, eyes reflecting their fear. "Don't give up. We're here," Jake shouted, feeling his own spirit weaken beneath the rising tide of despair. With a fierce grip, Jake reached out again, struggling to bridge the gap. "Focus on us. Fight. We will get you out." The boy's panicked gaze flickered between despair and faith. The shadows tugged insistently, but for a brief second, hope surged in the storm. "Hold on." With that cry, their fingers connected. Jake, clasping the boy's wrist, tugging him upward, muscles screaming with unshed adrenaline. But the shadows reacted, a dark tide that shifted more dangerously. "Let go!" the boy cried in despair. "Never!" Jake roared, determination anchoring him against the unfathomable pull. With an explosive strength that emanated from their souls, they fought against the shadows, yanking the boy into the light. They broke through, gasping, coughing, sputtering, illuminated by the soft glow again, the warmth wrapping around them like a protective aura. "We did it!" Jake grinned, but panic gripped him as he breathed in the sobering reality. But the shadows remained behind, writhing, collective voices echoing with hunger. "Now what?" the girl questioned, fear creeping into her voice, and the boy gasped for breath, flailing against exhaustion. Suddenly, out of the shadows appeared that ghostly figure, eerily graceful and steeled with dangerous allure. A smile flickered on her lips, an echo of cruel promise lingering in the air like a gust. "You found the truth you sought. No. Leave us alone." The girl covered her mouth in horror, dread washing over them anew. But shadows coiled tighter around their ankles, plunging them back towards the depths of despair. "You will always return," the ghostly figure sang, her voice weaving through the air like haunting melodies. Jake stood firm, clutching both their hands, spirits ignited through a collective fight. "We will find a way, together." And in that moment, fueled by unity and courage, they surged forward, a triumphant rush against the encroaching shadows, refusing to be consumed. They chose the path of light not just for survival, but for the strength to confront their fears head-on. What lay ahead would demand not just endurance but unity, allowing their stories to intertwine, woven through light and dark, breaking boundaries. As they leapt forth, hearts racing, the night unfolded, shadows receding, laughter silenced in the wake of their shared courage. The path before them shimmered, a testament to the bonds forged beneath the darkest terrors, ushering them into the dawn of new beginnings, if they had the strength to grasp it. The haunting melodies hung in the air, but now there was a rhythm of hope behind them, driving them forward, without looking back. And as they embraced the unknown together, ready to face whatever awaited them, they realized sometimes, the greatest horrors reveal the most powerful truths. And together, they could endure. If you've enjoyed this journey with Jake and his group of friends, you need to subscribe now. This is your chance to be part of our next thrilling tale that peeks into the unknown. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support is everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how this harrowing adventure concludes. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your friends will thank you for being part of our growing community.